So let's start with problems only. So now I think you might, like, after solving problems on the platform, you might have got some experience of STL. Let's talk about few more problems, few more ideas of STL today. And let's start with a simpler problem. So let's say you have an array, okay, and you want to count the number of subarrays which has, so let's start with the standard one. So find out the number of subarrays of this particular array. So you are given this array ARR and its size is n. Find the number of subarrays which has sum, like the sum of the entries equal to a particular value x. Okay, let's start with a very standard problem. So let's say you are given an array and you have to find the number of subarrays that you have in the array, which is with whose sum is equal to x. And the subarrays that you are counting should not, like, it should not be it should be non-empty. Like you don't count empty subarrays. Like even if the answer is 0, like if x is 0, you don't count empty subarrays in that case. So any ideas how we can do this one? Okay, Saurav says hash map and prefix sum. Okay. Yep. Yep, I think that's the idea. So we use a hash map or a map. We don't, like, there are two maps. So generally, if you're talking about maps, yeah. So when you say map, it's not actually hash map. Map is not equal to hash map. Okay. Hash map is actually equal to the unordered map that you have in C++. Okay. And if you're using Java, if you know Java, tree sets and tree maps are the map that we have in C++. So we will use maps, but we will use a simple concept of prefix sums. So now prefix sum was there in the demo course. I'm assuming that you might have gone through one video at least of that, but anyways, the concept is very easy in this and you will not need any like prerequisite for that. So the idea is, let's say you have a particular, let's say 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, something like this, okay? And you need to find for the number of subarrays containing the value, let's say 5. Okay? The target sum is 5. So ideally, you can write a order n square solution very easily, that you start with every point and maintain a running sum. You take the first element, maintain a running sum, check if it's target or not, and then increase the counter, right? Writing that particular code is very easy. Like from start this, move to the next element, see if it's if the sum is 5 or not, move next, sum is 5 or not. The elements can be negative as well, okay? I'm assuming that the numbers can be negative as well. Okay. So if you're taking any number I, you basically need to check whether the sum from I to j is equal to, so summation of ARR of some, let's suppose x is equal to I to j, if this is equal to the given target sum or not. Okay, the given target sum is given to you in the problem. So n, the size of the array, and the sum is given to you. You need to find how many subarrays are there. So this is what you need to do. So in a lot of such scenarios where you have to like deal with subarrays, you will have to work with prefix sums. So this is rather a complex term and which has a lot of variables in it. Like there are like depends on the size of the subarray, but it will actually have like as many elements as there is the element in the subarray. So handling that many variables is difficult. So what we do is, in such problem, we try to change it to prefix sums. Okay? So prefix sums are built simply by taking a, let's say you're given an array A, and let's just quickly iterate on one example, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. And so prefix sum would be this 1, this plus this 3. You can build this prefix sum very easily. Okay, so prefix sum is ith element of the prefix sum stores the sum of first I element. Okay, that is what prefix sum stores. Okay, so don't worry. In the next week there is prefix sums, and if you have not done the questions in the demo course, they will be available in the next week, along with other topics, obviously. So there will be 11 and this will be 13. Okay, so now in this prefix sum part, Now, if you talk about a particular sum from range I to j, if you write the sum of I to j in a prefix sum terms, the formula becomes prefix of j minus prefix of I is equal to the given sum, right? This is what, sorry, it should not be I, it should be I minus 1. Let's make it I minus 1. Why this works? Because if you want to find the sum of this particular range, this stores up to this and this stores up to this particular element. AR of j stores up to this particular element, this whole range, and I minus 1 stores up to just before I, whatever the sum of elements from the start is. So if you subtract these two values, you get the sum of the range only. So this is the whole idea of using prefix sums, that it actually converts subarrays into just two value subtractions. And then we need to find the number of such pairs of I and j that satisfies this, right? So now the question boils down to, once you have this array ARR, build its prefix sum, and on this prefix sum you try to check what is the, how many I comma j pairs exist such that the sum is this, right? So this is now getting converted into a different problem. So how do we solve this? So now let's look at just this particular expression. So now we have prefix of I minus prefix of j. So let's keep the same condition only. Prefix of j minus prefix of I minus 1, okay, equal to some sums, okay. So now let's try to count the number of subarrays that end at a particular point and has sum equal to this particular sum. So what we do is, we have the array, so we will iterate from the front, okay, and whenever we reach at a particular point, let's suppose in the array, we consider all the subarrays that start at a particular point and end at this point, which has sum equal to this given sum, okay. This is what we are trying to count. We will iterate on the array, and on each iteration we try to count the number of subarrays that end at a particular index j, okay. So this, we are iterating on the j part of the expression, okay. So we need to find the number of i's before it which satisfies this, right? So I can be equal to j, I can be equal to this on the first element. When I is equal to 0, prefix of I minus 1 will become negative, and in general when we are talking about prefix sums, if it goes outside the bound, we take 0 element, okay. So that's for positive, plus minus, it's like 0 only, so we take the 0 element of that operation. So now we need to count the number of indexes I such that prefix of I minus 1 will be equal to, so we can rewrite this as prefix of I minus 1 is equal to sum minus sum, okay, not sum, prefix of j minus sum, right? Okay. So this is what we need to search for, like how many I minus 1s are there before it such that this holds, okay. So what we can do is, when we were iterating from the front to the position I, we can create a hash map or a map, whichever you want. Like ideally you should go with maps only. Create a map of all the possible values that this index give when you use. So you just keep a hash map of the number of times you have seen a particular prefix, okay. You have seen a particular prefix value. So when you are at this particular point, you know the prefix sum up to this is prefix of some, let's say this is I minus 1. So its value is prefix of I minus 1, right? So you increase the count of this particular value in the map. Don't worry if it's not clear exactly what we're keeping, we will code this one, but you increase the count of this, okay? And then for this, when you reach at this particular j, you have the map built for all of these elements, and you will search for the number of times you have seen this value. Note that you are at j, so you know prefix of j and sum. You just need to count the number of times this particular value has occurred as prefix sum in these elements, in the, like from this to this, so that you can search in a map, okay, and that will give you in the number of times it has occurred as in order log n. And since we are iterating for the j part, it will take you in total n times order log it, right? So this is all that we would be doing. So this is like a very standard application of maps to count the number of subarrays that you have to maintain some particular sum or something like this. So any doubt in the logic? We will implement this. So I think let's start implementing, and it will make sense more once we start implementing. So let's say you are implementing this particular problem and you have like an array. So now note that, let's suppose in an array you are given the constraint that n can be less than equal to 10 to the power 5, and the array sizes can be up to 10 to the power 9. Okay. So in this case, we are going to need to create prefix sums, right? So it will go beyond 10 to the power 9. Actually, it will be at max 10 to the power 40, the sum, the value, the entries in the prefix sum. So you need LLI. So just quickly define LLI like long int as long, and then you can create a vector of LLI ARR and the prefix sum that you need, right? So these things you can create very easily, taking the input n. Now, when you are keeping things in variable in the global scope, you actually don't need global scope in this particular problem, but let's keep things in global only for this one. So now if you think you're keeping these over here, you need to like resize them. Okay, don't forget this. This is one more mistake that you've seen. You don't forget to resize them when you're keeping them in the global scope. So what you do is you just loop from I equal to n I plus plus, and you need to build the prefix sum for this. So you first of all take the value of ARR of I, you assign the prefix sum of I is equal to the value at that particular position. And if it is a positive index, then you also build the prefix sum simultaneously. Okay, so this is the logic of building prefix sum. So you can write building and taking input in a single loop itself if you want to in prefix sum case. So this is how you can write that. Okay. So now you have the array and the prefix sum of the array built for you. Now you want to count the number of subarrays which has the sum equal to this some particular given sum. Okay, so let's take that as well. Sum is given to us. Okay. Now what we do is we loop from I equal to 0 to n, and so we want to first of all search for the particular value that we need. So we need to search how many times have we seen prefix of j minus sum before, right? Prefix. So we are at j. So let's rename this variable. So we are looping on j, the endpoint of the prefix sum. Okay, prefix range that we're talking about. So we just keep a variable like answer, which will count the number of time it has occurred. Okay. Now answer plus equal to, we will also keep a map which will store the number of times we have seen this particular prefix sum. Okay. So we will count the number of times this particular prefix sum has occurred, and that basically gives you the number of possible i's that you have for the j. Okay. So we just want to satisfy this condition, right? So if this holds, then you want to know the number of i's that are such that this prefix value is there at that particular I. Prefix of I minus 1 is this particular. So you keep those i's in this map. So you first of all add prefix of sum minus prefix of, so this is what the expression is, right? Sum minus prefix of j, or is prefix of j minus sum? Which one is it? Prefix of j minus sum, right? So we will quickly add that this one, prefix of j minus sum. Okay. So we try to count how many such I minus ones are there. So we will keep the count of I minus ones such that prefix of I minus 1 is this particular value. So we will keep that in the map. Okay. So we will add this first, and then for this index we will insert that in the map. So we will just quickly do this. Prefix of let's say j plus plus. Okay, whatever prefix sum you see at this index. So you just increase its frequency. Okay. This is all you need to do. So I have seen a lot of people coding maps using like first you find and set it to 1 if it's not present, or else you set it to some particular value. You can just, by default map takes 0 value. So if you just increment it, even if it's not present, it will create a 0 value and it will increment it to 1. Okay. So this is how you write it, and then you just print the answer. Now there is one small mistake in this code. Can someone point it out? One particular case that is being missed in this one. So over here we are counting the number of arrays which gives the particular sum, right? for I equal to 0, right? That's correct. So when I is equal to 0, so let's try to just run it on one simple array. Okay, let's suppose my array size is 1 and there is the number is 1. Okay, so its prefix sum will be 1 as well, and you want to find the sum 1, but it gives you the value 0 because it's not able to find any subarray which is equal to 1. Why is that? Even if you have this one subarray, right? So why is this happening? Because when you're starting, there is this 1 over here. So you search for 1 in the map, but there is no, so you search for prefix of this index, prefix of j, which is 1, okay, prefix of j, minus sum, okay, which is 1. So you search for 0 in the map, but it's not present. Why is it not present? Because note that we have not inserted element for this one. Like we should have inserted, let's suppose this is j. Yeah, we should do mp of 0 plus plus, right? Yeah, that's exactly the thing that we'll be doing. So when this is j, I can be this itself, right? I can be this same as this j. So in that case, I minus 1 would have been this, but we have not inserted this prefix of I minus 1 in the map, even if we need this one. So before starting, we need to insert prefix of prefix of I minus 1, prefix of 0 minus 1, that is prefix of minus 1. And as I said, if we go out of bounds in prefix sums, we generally take the element to be 0. So we need to insert that value in the map first. Okay, so we need to do this prefix of mp 0 plus plus. Okay. And that's it. That will give us the correct value. So if I now search for, let's say I want to search for a given array 1, 2, 3, and I want to search for number of subarrays which has the sum 3, it will give me 2. That is this subarray and this subarray, right? So this is how you can search for a number of subarrays having a particular value. So we used a prefix sum a bit, but the logic for prefix sum was very simple. We just wanted to get to this particular expression, and we keep a map of one value and check the other one in the map. So this idea sometimes comes in handy, that when you're trying to find the expression's value for possible expression value. So take one of the variables on one hand side, create all possible values in a map, and then for the other one, loop over and check how many such values have you seen. Okay, that's a good question. If it's not clear, it should get cleared. So there are two possibilities, right? You can keep map or you can keep unordered map. Now, which one should you use in questions? I would say use map first. If you get a TLE, use unordered map. Don't use unordered map first, and then if you get a TLE, use map. Okay, use map first. If it gets a TLE, use unordered map. Now let's understand what the complexity is. So in map, the insert and delete on worst case, on average case as well, takes order login. So it will be login for every axis. So this particular operation over here takes order login, and it is done n times, so it is n login, right? If we make it unordered map, so in this case, this takes order 1 on average, but on worst case, it can take order n. So this will become n squared in that case. So there can be test cases which might fail this. So on Codeforces, it is a hackable solution. So don't use unordered map directly. Also, you can optimize unordered map a bit by using map.reserves, and like there are a lot of different syntaxes, but you don't need to know all those things. Just use map, that should be safe enough. Okay, yep, sure. So let's understand this one. So let's say you have this 1, 2, 3 array, and you are building this map over here. So you come to this first index. You first have inserted the, like, 0 occurs once. Okay, this you have kept in the map. Then you come to this. You want to find the sum equal to 3. So if sum has to be equal to 3, let's build the prefix sum as well. So prefix sum will be equal to 1, 3, 6, right? So prefix sum is 1, 3, 6, and the arrays are 1, 2, 3. So when you end at this one, you have to get a -2 somewhere, so that this particular sum gets a sum of 3, right? So you have to search for -2 in this map. It's not present, so the contribution is 0. Okay. Then you insert this prefix sum into the map. So one happens. Okay, 1 happens exactly once now. Then you move this pointer one step ahead, and you now search for 2. Okay. So for 2, it's the prefix of j minus sum. Okay. Is there a mistake in the expression? No. Let's come back to this prefix of, okay, so this is, so prefix of j is 3. Let's come to this. Prefix of j is 3, right? Sorry, we did not insert this one, we inserted this prefix one, right? So the prefix sum over here is 3. So prefix of j minus 3 is what we search for. So prefix of this minus 3 will be 0. So we see the count of 0 is 1. So we increment answer by 1, okay? And then we insert this 3 as well once, okay? And then we come to this particular value. So prefix sum is 6. So we need a 3 somewhere to get like a prefix sum of subtraction as 1. Like this subtraction should be 3, right? So this should be 6. Okay. The prefix sum of j is 6. So the prefix sum of j minus sum should be 3. So now we count for number of 3's in the array, and that would be equal to 1, because we have inserted this 3 over here. And if you talk about how is this working, it's actually something like this. Let me explain that. So when you are searching for this particular element, when you're searching for this particular element, when you're searching at this endpoint, it is actually taking this endpoint, that is this 0 over here. Okay. When you're searching at this endpoint, it's taking this other point as j, because 3 is over here. And since this is a possible answer, and for this index, this was a possible answer, right? So that's how it's counting. Make sense? So this all comes from this particular expression only. So this particular expression is what we have done over, like this is the main manipulation that we have done over here. Okay. So this is one standard application of prefix sum. So you would be having a lot of all the rest of the ideas that are there on prefix sum, how to build prefix sums or different things will be there on the the added next section, like the section on prefix sum will be there on the course. So you will have to do the problems over there. It was there on the demo course, but even if you have not done, take time and complete those, because prefix sum would be used like in optimizing DPs and other things, even binary searches. Okay. So you need to get a good grasp on prefix sums. Let's now talk about another problem. So everyone good with this particular problem? Can we move to the next one? If you're not sure how this is working, just like once code this one, and then you will be able to understand all of these things. Okay. Let's talk about. So let's talk about a new idea. Let's say I will give you segments. Okay, so there are Q queries. Okay, so initially, like there is a very long space, like there is a number line. Okay, there is a number line which is like infinite on both sides. Okay, and I will give you I will insert segments into it, right? I will insert, like first you can insert a segment. You can insert a segment, something like this. I can insert one more segment, and then I will ask for how many connected segments are there. So this is a line, right? So these two will get connected when they are inserted, right? This will be like a one portion in the line, okay? And this portion will be one portion in the line. Is it making sense? So say, let's suppose now I insert one more segment over here. So your actual segment will look something like this, like it will be extended up to this, right? So if I now ask you to count the number of segments on the line, you will actually report 2, because there are 2 like disconnected components of segment there are on the lines, right? Like this is one segment, this is one segment, and this is the other segment. Okay. Now let's suppose I insert one more segment over here, something like this. So now this part will be filled. So these two will get like merged. And now if I ask you the number of like segments on the line, you will need to report 1. Okay. So now you can assume that this line is very big, and the numbers like the left bound and the right bound can be up to 10 to the power, like let's say 18. You can take 10 to the power 18 only. It's no problem. Let's say 10 to the power 12. So let's say you are given Q queries. On each of them can be of 2 types, plus L and R. So that means insert a segment of size L and R, and query, which basically asks you for the number of like continuous ranges there are on the line. Okay. So I hope the question is clear, that if you put in this line and this line, there is just one segment on the number line, right? These are, I'm just writing it separately, but on the line it will look like there is a one segment. one green segment over here. If I insert one more line over here, it will be like one more line over here. Right? So we need to count the number of lines on the number of like connected lines, number of disconnected like partitions or the segments there are on the line. Is the question making sense? Is the question clear to all? Can I have a +1 from everyone on the chat so that because this is important. If you don't understand the question, then I think like you're doomed. Okay. So we need to somehow maintain the number of like separate lines that you have on the line. Now, how can we solve this particular problem? Any ideas?
I have one doubt. So the queries may come in addition and then query, addition and then query.
Yeah. So either like you will need to maintain this like query like at any like after like you have to insert 1, 2, 3, and then you need to answer the query, and then you might need to insert from 2 to 4, and then you need to answer this, and then so on. Okay. So it's not like you need to build something and then finally print the answer.
Okay.
So there can be multiple queries and multiple. Okay. So I think Karthik, what you're saying is you are saying that you are just giving the final answer, right? That if there is only okay. So the question is you need to insert segments on a line, and you need to report how many connected segments are there on the line. So when two segments intersect, let's assume that even if they intersect on the boundary, they get like merged. Okay. So these are like continuous ranges, including the endpoint. Okay. So you need to tell me how many components are there on the line. So if you insert, let's say, this range and this range, they get connected. Okay. And there is this range. So the answer for this would be 2, because on the line itself, if you see, this is one region and this is another region, right? Okay. So when we add a query, when an add query comes, we check if it overlaps with existing segments and then we merge it. Yeah. So this is one potential solution. But the thing is, how do we like do this? So if we can do this, then we are done, right? Like if we can like when a segment inserts, if we can just merge things accordingly, then we are done, right? That's correct. But how do we do this part? Okay. So for keep the maximum R. Okay. Saurav, I think I said that L and R can be up to 10 to the power 12. 10 to the power 12. Both of them can be up to less than equal to 10 to the power 12. So we cannot use prefix sum or partial sum, something like that. And also with prefix and a partial sum, it is not solvable because you don't know. Yeah, okay, it's solvable with prefix sums, but we are taking it to be like up to ranges. Like it's continuous ranges. It's not like up to 10 to the power 12. So it's not solvable. So the idea that Saurabh was saying is partial sum. It's there in the next week's module. So you will be getting that access today. We will keep maximum R. Okay, we can keep maximum R. Okay, but like how do you maintain the maximum R like that? So new points will be inserted and a lot of things will happen, right? Maintain start and end of current segments. How do you like what do you maintain as pair values in like where do you maintain that? Okay. Yeah, so one solution that Amisha is saying is I think correct, that if like you can like maintain pairs, like you can maintain pair of L comma R, like in a pair you can save a first and second, right? So in pairs you can keep L and R, and you can like keep a vector and you can check with a linear scan if you want to that okay how many segments are there. That's a possible solution, but we want to do these things very efficiently. In other words, what I want to say is Q is up to 10 to the power 5. So you cannot afford linear time for each query. Okay. You cannot afford linear time for each query, or you cannot afford linear time for each bus. So we want to do better than linear for both of them. So there are a lot of linear solutions that you can do, like you can rebuild the structure or you can like sweep through the line. There are different techniques that we will discuss later on, but we need to do it better than this. Okay. So the idea that we will use is similar to what Amisha is suggesting, that we will maintain pairs of start and end. But how do we maintain that efficiently? So we will be using, let's say, we can code it in different styles, but this will be mostly an implementation problem. Actually, this is like an implementation problem in itself. There is like no big logic in it. We will be doing exactly what Tejas was suggesting, that when an add query comes, we can check with which what it overlaps and then merge it all. We will use that. We can use map, but I think for map it will be like few more it is possible to do it with maps as well, because multisets and map are like quite comparable. But in this case, we will use multisets. So let's talk about how we can use multisets in this particular problem. We can use maps as well. No, we don't need two maps. No. Two maps will not. Okay, I think you are on the wrong direction. Two maps will not work. Like L and R for separate L and R. Okay, yeah, this we can do with. Okay. So there are few cases that you will need to understand over here. Let's say, so what we will do is, we will at every point of time we will maintain the segments on the line after merging. Okay, we will maintain these merged segments on a multiset, okay, with pairs of first and last, so on, right? So we will maintain this. Let's suppose something like this gets inserted in it. We will remove it, like whatever problematic things are there over here, we will remove all of these things and we will insert this one line over here in the multiset. Okay? Something like this. This is what we are going to implement. Okay. But we will have to do this efficiently. Okay. So we will have to check a lot of things over here. Mostly the problem happens with, so there are few things that you will have to check. That all can be covered in this one particular case. And then you insert things like this, up to this, let's say. So this actually merges with this as well, and this as well. So final result should be from this to this, right? Is this clear to all? Okay. So we will try to maintain these merged segments as pairs in a multiset, and we will try to insert a new one and like do the like merging, removing the ones that will get merged and all those things, and we will then like maintain this property in the multiset. So this idea of maintaining properties in a multiset is a very powerful one. Like we try to maintain things, and then whenever query comes, we just report the maintained property. Okay, so we maintain the number of connected segments in the line itself. Okay. So let's talk about how we would be like coding this particular problem. So in this particular case, we will use multisets. You can also implement this using maps. But in maps, what happens is you might make mistakes by inserting like single points. Like you might access points and might check whether it's there or not. Like there might be possible errors. It's equally like you can implement it with that as well. Like there is no problem. So, but we will be using multiset because I think I implemented a one problem on the previous live session on with maps, which used a lot of different operators like lower bounds, accessing iterators and stuff on map. So we would be using multiset today. So let's talk about how we will implement this. So let's suppose you will get Q queries and you will get Q operations. So for each of the operation, you will get a type, which type of operation it is. Okay. For integer I equal to 0, I is less than q, I plus plus, and then you will check, you will take a character, check for the type of the operation. Okay. If the type of the operation is a plus, okay, then you will take a segment. So I said that these won't fit in integer. So let's make this long LLI. Okay. And then we will insert this LLI, or else we will report the answer. So like, let's try to create this maintenance of segments in a separate, like in a structure. So let's create a multiset which keeps pair. Okay. Okay. Now we have to insert a particular L to R, like we will be given an, let's long arm only. We might need to insert a particular L to R, or we might need to get segments, number of segments. Okay. So these two things are the main things that you need to answer. In fact, the number of segments will always be up to 10 to the power 5, so we keep it in. So this insert part is the most tricky one, right? Because what we are, based on what we are implementing, what is the answer for get segment? Yep, exactly. So we discussed that we will be maintaining the number of like these segments, connected segments in the line itself, right? So what we can do is we can have this as a separate. So this empty will maintain the size. So we just return empty dot size. That's it. Okay. So now let's talk about how we can insert a particular L2R. So first of all, we will need to take care of this case that from the point where we are starting, there might be a segment which starts before it and touches this point, right? So we need to first find this particular segment. How do we find this one? So we need to find the segment starting before this, just before this. Okay. So there is a nice property on this multiset that we are building. Okay. This multiset that we are building, it will be sorted by its pairs, right? Because this L will remain sorted. So for any particular point, we can easily search for which range starts before or after it. So that's what we would be using out of this multiset. That's the property that we would leverage to calculate this efficiently. So for this particular point, we want to find the range that starts before it, starts before or exactly equal to it, and ends after it, so that it gets merged with it. Okay. So there can be only 3 types of segments which start before it, merge and gets merged with it, which is completely inside it, which we have to remove from the multiset, and something which ends before it and which starts before it, before its end, and ends after it. So in that case, we have to keep the end up to that point. So these are the only 3 cases that you need to handle. So we will try to handle each of them individually. So first we will need to find the segment which starts before that. Okay. So let's write this one. Okay. Yeah, I think let's put out. So let me quickly draw it on the side just to make sure what we are searching for. This is the LNR, and this is what we are searching for. This any range, something like this. Okay. So what we can do is, we have to search for L in the multiset. Now, when you are keeping a pair in a multiset, just a second. Yeah. So when you are keeping a pair in a multiset, so when we would be using lower bounds and upper bounds to find the segments by using the property that they are sorted by L. Okay. So pairs are comparable, and when you sort them, they get sorted by their L first, and if L is same, they get sorted by the R values. So when you need to search for a particular L, you can use lower bounds and upper bounds. So what we do is we search for auto IT. So we need to find the segment which starts before it. Okay. So anything that starts exactly at its start point will be something like it will get completely consumed inside it, right? If it starts exactly, it will get consumed inside it, or it will be of this case. So we will consider only those which start before it. Okay. So we will use auto IT equal to empty dot lower bound, because lower bound gives us something greater than equal to it. Okay. Lower bound L, but this is wrong because multiset contains a pair, so we will have to search for a pair. So what is the pair that we should pass in over here? Yes, this will be available on the platform. What do you search for in when you have from L to R in this multiset? No, we do. So let's suppose we have let's take some values. That's not correct. We take the value from 1 to 3, and this is 0 to 2. So we want to search for, okay, this will work in this case. Let's say we want to search for this will fail in case numbers are negative. So the ideal way to do this in most particular problems is having L comma minus infinity, something like this. Okay, I'm not defining infinity, but we should ideally keep it minus infinity, because any pair which has its first as L will be greater than this value. Is it understood that any pair which has the first value as L will definitely be greater than this one? So it will find the first segment which has L starting at this point. So in this particular problem, this is not actually making any problem. So even LR works. But in general, if you want to search for a range in a multiset which maintains pair, you should ideally do it in this way to find. So you need to think about the second value. It's not very trivial to search for second value. So either it should be positive infinity or negative infinity or 0 or some R. Based on that, you will have to think for the problem. Okay? It's not like fixed. So we should ideally be searching for infinity. So let's quickly define infinity. Let's say 180. Okay, so you can search for this. Instead, in a lot of problems, what I so this is not a real segment, right? This is something which we are using to search for this segment, right? 0 to 2, like which is starting before it. So we just want to use a hypothetical segment which will definitely find this one using lower bounds. So this is not a real segment. This is something that we want to search for from the map. That's why you are using this one. Okay. So a lot of time what generally I use constant LLI mod in most of the question I have mod defined, right? So a very good value for infinity is sometimes mod into mod. Okay, so it's like 10 to the power 18. So this is my personal habit, but you can use some constant as well. Okay. So this will search for the segment that is starting greater than, like the first segment starting exactly equal to or after L, right? So if now we do IT minus minus, we will get the segment which starts before it. But before this, we need to check if there is a segment before it, right? If IT is not equal to begin, make sure you are not making these mistakes now. Okay, so you go for IT minus minus. Okay, so in that case, you go to the previous segment. Now, if IT dot second, okay, is greater than equal to L, that means the previous segment which starts before L has its R value greater than equal to the new L. That means they are going to get merged. Is it clear to all or not? If the previous segment's R is greater than equal to this segment's L, then this is going to get merged. Okay. So in that case, what we can do is we can assign the L, like we can make this new insertion segment's L equal to the previous segment's first, and we can erase the previous segment. So what we are doing is something like this, that let's say I want to insert this segment and I had this particular thing over here. So what I'm saying is, now I see that, okay, this is going to get merged. So what I do is I will insert this segment in this one. I will remove this one. I delete this iterator, and I like change my L to this particular point. Okay. And I don't repeat this again, because I now know that, okay, nothing will get before this, because we know that this property is maintained in the multiset, right? I don't want to do this. Okay. Is it clear? So this is how you can get the new updated L. Okay. Now, so let's try to do the same thing with R as well. So let's talk about the third case first, and then we will delete things in between the segment. So let's try to find out the segment which like starts before less than equal to R. So we are talking about those segments. So let's suppose there was this segment. We have to insert this one, and there was this segment which started at exactly R and up to this. So we had to get it merged with this one, right? So anything that starts less than equal to R and goes after R will get merged with, though R will get extended. If R of the first was larger, Yeah, so in that case, R will be the larger of the. Just a second. I make this one? Okay. T dot first. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. This should get, like, the R should also be updated in that case. So in that case, I will make R as max of IT dot second as well. Yeah. This is a nice point. Yeah. This should be done. Is it clear now? Why? Because in case this is the case. Yeah. This. So there was this segment, and then you were trying to insert this. Right? So what you do is you extend the insertions one to from this to this, and then you delete the previous one, and then you will insert this one. But that doesn't like take a lot of cost, right? We are trying to write one code that works for all cases. That's what we are trying to do. Okay. Also, one more thing that you can do in this particular problem is you can check whether like it is getting subsumed or not. Okay. So one more thing. So better way to do this actually would be to if IT dot second is greater than equal to R, then return. Is this making sense? Why am I doing this one? How many of you can make sense why am I doing this one? Okay. So basically what I'm saying is, if the segment that starts before me ends after me, then what's the point of inserting this one, this new one, right? Because this is getting completely subsumed inside this bigger range. So there's no point in inserting this one. So just return. Okay. Or else, since L is before, R has to be less than that. Okay. Anurag, in this one, lower bound is actually finding the element which is just whose L value is greater than equal to this given L, like whose first value is greater than equal to this particular L. So we search for any segment which is starting just at L or after it, and then we are doing IT minus minus. So we'll get things that are starting before it, strictly before it. Okay. Makes sense? Yeah. So now this is, I think, more ideal to be done instead of like doing it again and again, right? Now we will do the same thing with the R point. So what we do is auto. So again, we take IT equal to empty dot. So for R, what do we use? So we need to find for R any segment which start at exactly R or before R and ends after it. How can we do that? Upper bound, right? So we need to find something less than equal to. So when you need less than equal to, use upper bound and come back one element, right? So these are the things that you should now become clear after this STL sessions, and this is a very important, as these will be used frequently later on. So you use upper bound and you use R. Okay. And with R, what do you pair? Which starts, so you want to find elements which start strictly after R. Okay. So for that you use positive infinity. So even if something starts at R, so what was the problem in this particular case? Let's understand this one. Why are we using this kind of infinities in this cases? So this would be helpful in this R case. So let's suppose this is your segment and something starts at this only, exactly. Okay. And let's say let's say by mistake you use 0 over here. Okay. Let's say you used 0. Okay. Sorry, let's say, yeah. So you use 0. So we are going to go one step back, right? But this was R, this was the L for the point, and this was the R. So this R is actually greater than 0. So this element will actually point to this element, right? Because this particular element is greater than this, right? This is the L point, the first pair, the first element of this other segment, which is exactly starting at this R, is same as this R. So this is okay. But the second one is greater than this. So the upper bound of it will point to this, and then we will come back one element, which is wrong, because we had to find element which starts strictly after R, right? So that's why we had been using this positive infinity and negative infinity in these cases. That's the most important thing. So this is like one of the main learning that you should have from this problem, like kind of purpose of this problem. How to search pairs in multiset. Okay. And then if it is not equal to empty.begin, same as previous. So just quickly, let's copy this one. So in this case, we will not have to check this one, because if it gets completely subsumed inside something, it will be happening in this only. So we don't need to check this. Okay. And then if it.second is greater than equal to r, okay. So if it's ending after r, we make r is equal to it.second, and we erase the iterator. Make sense up to this? So what we have done is, till now, if we had to insert this range, we deleted this and extended it up to this. We deleted this and extended it up to this, right? But there can be still more like segments which can be in between, which are like completely inside this new range. So we just, when we insert this one, these will get repetitive, right? These will now be like problems, because then lower bounds and upper bounds will give us wrong value. So we need to remove them as well. So for this, we can like run a while loop. So let's say while one, okay. Auto. So now we search for element that start after this L, this new L that we are going to insert. Okay. Auto it is equal to empty dot upper bound, no, not upper bound, lower bound, this L comma minus infinity. So anything that starts with L. So one thing that you can keep in mind, if you are not very sure how this minus and plus is coming, when you are using lower bound of some particular value, use minus. When you're using upper bound, use like positive infinity. This should be like a quick gist if you're not 100% sure on what to use. Okay. But also you should understand what you're doing. You just need to think once and then it should be clear to you. Okay. Don't like blindly use it, but still, if you're still unsure, you can use this. Okay. Now you have this iterator to this. So this will give you the iterator to the segment that starts after L. Okay. If it is not equal to empty.end, if it is first, okay, is greater than L, is greater than R, then break, or else empty dot erase. Right. So what is that we're doing over here? So we are searching for any segment that starts after L. So what will happen is, let's suppose initially we had 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So when we were inserting this from this to, sorry, not up to this, up to let's say this. So what we did is we extended this to up to this point and deleted this. We extended it up to this point and deleted this. And then we search for the segment starting after this. Okay. So that is this segment. And then we check if it.first is greater than R. So it.first, so the left point is not greater than this new R, right? So we delete this because this is going to get completely subsumed. So it will get deleted in the first iteration. It will come to this. Okay. And then this while loop will run again. Or else we again search for the next point for this. It will give you this point. And its L is now after this. So you can erase, you don't need to erase this one. So it will remain in the multiset and you will break out of this loop. And this is how you can maintain the segments in the multiset. Is it making sense? How you can like maintain now? Can you maintain like pairs in multiset? So this is the idea of maintaining segments in multiset, so that you can do like insertions and putting. Okay, sure. So anyways, let's quickly compile this so that over here we. Yes, you can use L and L minus 1 in this particular problem, because the second pair can never be less than this. But like in this particular question, we have a notion of segments, right? In some particular problem, you might have notion of pairs where like the second value can be less than it as well. So if you want to search for like the first element which has first value greater than equal to L, So in that case, you can use this minus mod. In this particular problem, yes, even if you use L comma L minus 1, it will work as well. In fact, if you even use L, it will work. Okay. But so I coded in a more general way so that it works. So this is the main part that you can look into. Try to like work with this. I'm pasting this code directly in the chat. So we are searching and deleting. So this is how you can even maintain dynamic like multi-set like ranges in a multi-set. Okay. So a lot of questions ask you for like overlaps of segments, and like when the segments overlap, you need to merge them and so on. These kind of multi-sets can be very helpful in this particular scenario. So this question is clear now, right? Okay. Is everyone clear with this? Can I have a +1 and we can move to the next problem then? Can I have +1 from everyone in the chat? Because I think some of you might get sleepy. Okay. I hope like even if you're not even still able to implement this one, don't worry. Like at least you should be understanding the logic and how we are doing these things in multi-set, because that's very important to build. Okay. Also practice the questions, like make sure you're completing the questions on the like that's the minimal set at least you should solve. Okay. Then you can also practice if you want from external sources, like go on Codeforces or CodeChef. You're free to go with that, but ideally you should at least complete the problems that are there on the platform, because those also cover some important techniques or topics that are required. Okay, let's move to the next. Okay, I think IT not equal to really should something to which one? IT is not equal to empty dot begin. So the L will remain same as the initial, like the passed value, right? The tag will be implementation. But I think it's difficult to search for STL based questions like in this case. So this L and R is actually the input L and R, right? But we are trying to extend it if we find something that intersects, but or else it will remain the same value, right? Okay. Let's talk about the next problem. This will take some time, but it's an interesting one. So let's talk about this particular question. So let's say you are given you're on a, let's say, vehicle, and it starts at a particular point x comma y on a n comma m board given to you. Okay, n comma m board is given to you, and you start at a particular x comma y. Okay, this particular, let's suppose this particular. So whichever cell you move into once, that cell gets like destroyed. Okay, so something. Hello, just a second. Am I audible? Okay. Yeah, so this part will be uploaded. No worries. So from this starting point, you can you are given instructions like left, right, up or down. Okay, these 4 instructions are given to you, and based on that you will have to move. Okay, but from whichever cell you leave, that cell gets like demolished. So what happens is, once it gets demolished, now if you go back to this cell, you will get like slipped into the like the cell which is not destroyed in that particular direction. So let's suppose you first are at this cell. Okay, let's say this cell, then you go to this cell and this cell gets destroyed. Okay, so you are given an n cross m maze and you are starting at a particular point. So whichever point you go, like whichever cell you leave, that cell gets destroyed. And by destroyed, I mean to say that when you come back to that particular cell in some direction, you will get slipped to the next particular cell. So the statement is something like it converts into an ice, and then like if you try to go to that cell, you slip to the next cell which is not ice. Okay, that's what the statement is. Okay, so you will go to this cell and then this cell will become ice. Okay, and then if let's suppose you go down from this, you will get slipped to this particular cell. Okay, sorry, this will become ice and you go to this cell, and then if you again move up, it goes to this cell and this will become ice. Okay, and then if you move right, this cell becomes ice. Okay, and then if you move left, sorry, if you move left, you go to this cell, and then if you move right, you go to this cell and this becomes ice. So this becomes ice and then you move to this particular cell because this is ice. So yes, I was coming to that. So let's suppose in a particular cell, so once you, if you hit the boundary, you remain at the like you, let's say you fall off the board, you just need to report that okay, you have like fallen off the board. So let's say this is a board and each of the like cells become icy after you leave that cell. So next time you come to a, you try to go to a icy cell, you will skid in the same direction in which you are coming. Okay, is the question clear to all? Okay. So now let's say n can be up to 10 to the power 5 and m can be also up to 10 to the power 5, and you start at a particular point x comma y. Okay, and you are given q number of instructions, like you need to go L, you need to next go to R, you need to next go to U, you need to next go to D, and so on, right? Q such instructions are given, and Q is also up to 10 to the power 5. So you need to print the trajectory of the particle, like whatever, which cells it's going to. So in case, let's suppose you are given from this particular cell, you go LR, LR. Okay. So this will fall off. So let's call it up, down, and then L. So you will go something like this: up, down, up, down, then left. So you will reach this cell. So because in between everything will become icy, right? Once you leave this, it becomes icy, and then you go directly to this particular cell. Make sense? So with this particular like parts, you will need to print the like cell, like the path of the trajectory. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can maintain a set of pairs, and while going in a direction, we can maintain a while loop. So while we find a valid non-IC cell, we keep going in that direction. And in the while loop, we can make a condition like if we are at the end, beyond the end, then we can just stay there, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a good idea, but let's talk about this particular scenario that you have a really big cell, right? So what if I make you like oscillate through like this, something like this? That okay, I go with I start at the middle, I go up, then I go down, then I go up, and then I go down. So what will happen in each of the moves? You will have to iterate on, like first time you will have to check one cell and then you will move to this one, right? Next time you will have to check two cells and you will have to move to this, right? So you will iterate on the set and you will have to find the next particular cell, right? So
Yeah.
one second, let me like make it linear. So let's talk about just a linear cell. Okay, let's talk about just a linear shape. So you're starting at this cell, you move one cell left, then you move one cell right, then you move one cell left, and so on. If you like try to oscillate in this in such fashion, what happens is you will maintain a set of things which are like free, which are blocked in this particular what will you maintain in the set? The free cells or the blocked cells?
Blocked cells.
Blocked cells. So once you move out of it, this will become blocked and you will add it to the set, right? It is there in the set, right? Then when you try to go back, you will check in the set, okay, this is blocked. So you will now check the next cell, it is not blocked. So you will go to it and this will become blocked, right? Then when you go back, you will check this, it's blocked. You check this is blocked, and then you go to this, right? This is what we are doing, right?
Yes.
But this will become order q square, because understand that like you will have to check like this sequence will become like something like 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 in this particular scenario, right? Up to qth number.
Yeah.
And this board can be pretty large, so you will get a q square complexity in this case. In fact, q square log n, because you have to like check in the q square log q, because you will have to check in the set.
So cannot we do some lower bound and upper bound to get the exact cell that is in the contention? Like,
Yeah, so how do we maintain that in set? Yeah, exactly. How do we do that? Like, what do you maintain in the set for that purpose? Any ideas? Lowermost IC cell, uppermost IC cell can be maintained. Uh, okay, so there is one possible idea that I can tell you, like something like this. Okay, you can maintain like a free cells in a segment, right? Instead of like keeping the ones that are blocked, you can maintain free cell, and then you can like find out the lower bound and upper bound in a set. But again, in the original question, n and m are up to 10 to the power 5, so it will take you like 10 to the power 10 to save, right? For each of the row, you will have to save its individual things. Lowermost IC and uppermost IC cell can be maintained. That's difficult. Like, just by saying the lowermost and uppermost will not help, right? There might be like like something like there is this IC chain, and then there are free cells, then there is this IC chain, and then there is free cell, because you might move in this direction as well. Like, you can go this and then again jump something like this, and then something like this, right? You can move something like this. So just storing the lowest and highest, like in a row, it might be like a segment pattern. It might not be. Right, erase the blocked cell from the set and upper bound. True. So this is one partition solution, that you erase the cells. But the problem over here is, so in a row there can be up to 10 to the power 5 values, right? There are 10 to the power 5 columns, 10 to the power 5 rows. So in each row, if you maintain all the elements, it will take 10 to the power 5 in each row. And then when you delete, so there will be 10 to the power 10 entries in total in the total array, right? Like, for each of the row, you will have to maintain which all things are not erased, right? And similarly for each of the column, to maintain the directions, right? When you are moving up and down, columns matter, and when you are moving in the same left and right, the rows matter. So for each of the row, you will have to maintain which cells are not there, like which cells are like free or blocked, whichever you want to do. So the idea is, first of all, understand that when you are moving up and down, only the column matters, like only the state of the column matters. And when we are moving left and right, only the state of the row matters, right? Because what is the status of that row will determine where will you reach in that row. Is it clear to all or not, that what is the like IC patterns in that row will determine where you in the same row will determine where you finally decide. Okay, so what we can do is, we can maintain the free cells in a segment form in a row. Okay, so let's say you want to maintain a particular rows like status. Okay, so now we like forget about there are more rows, so we can go up and down and come from any at place. Like, there can be some like movement, and we can teleport to other places. You can assume it like a teleportation for now, but in one row there can be left and right operations, right? So what we can do is, we can maintain the range of free cells in a particular row. So let's suppose I maintain, first of all, 1 to, let's say it's n cross m, right? So it's 1 to m, everything is free, right, in this particular row now. Okay, so I maintain in a multi-set 1 to m is free. Okay, so now when I reach a particular x comma y in this range, in this row, I know that when I move out of this x comma y is going to get like frozen, and it's not going to be a valid cell anymore, right? So what I can do is, I can find out which segment this x comma y lies in, and I can break that segment into two parts. So I will find out, so I reached this, right? So I know that this is a valid segment for sure. I know that this cell is a valid cell. like it's not yet have been removed. So now if I reach this, I know next time if I do a right or if I do a left or right operation in this row, it is going to get deleted. So I do that deletion here itself. So when I reach it, I just find out in this row where is this x comma y, in which segment it is, and I break that segment from 1 to x minus 1, and I break that to x plus 1 to let's say m. Okay. Similarly, I do it for the column as well. Similarly, I do it for a column as well. So when I reach this particular x comma y, I break this 1 comma n range in the column to 1 to y, one segment, and then 1 to y minus 1, and then y plus 1 to another segment. Okay. So I will maintain each of the rows in a multi-set. For each of the row, I will maintain the segments of non-frozen cell, like 1, 2, 3. Then let's suppose 4 is frozen, then 5 to 7 is not frozen, and then 8 is frozen, and 9 and 10 is not frozen, right? So now in this case, let's say if you are at so now I know you have maintained a state x comma y where you last were, right? Let's suppose you were in this row. Let's suppose you were at 8 commas, whatever the column number for whatever the row, whatever the, so these would be column number, right? So for the row, you will have to make it y. Just a quick mistake here. This should be y. Okay. For the rows, this will be column numbering, and for the columns, it will be row numbering, right? So now, so you are keeping this unfrozen states in a particular row in this fashion. So now let's suppose you are at a particular cell and you want to find out which cell you will reach next when you are at, like when you go in one direction. So let's suppose you are at 8, and then you go in like in one of the directions, then you reach at 7, right? So you know that this is there, so you just like go to that particular cell, so you remove them. So let's suppose I go from 8 so let's say I am at, so let's say this is row number 1 only, and you are at 1,8 now, and then you go left, so you will reach 7 because 1,7, because 7 is not frozen. So now your state will become 1,7. Okay, and this 7 needs to get removed from this set, from this row set, because this is going to get deleted now, right? So this will become 1 comma, so this multiset will, you will have to erase it from the multiset. So you will erase this element and insert a new element, which is 5,6, and then 9,10. Okay, then let's suppose from this 1,7 you go up, let's say 2,7, then you somehow like move to let's suppose 2,2, and then you come down once, that is 1,2. So in that case, you come inside over here in between this segment, so you break it to 1 to 1, 3 to 3, 5 to 6, and then 9 to 10, right? So this is how we would be maintaining things in rows, in each of the rows and each of the columns. Now note that initially when you have the states, so when you are like going into a cell x comma y, you need to do this for row as well as for column. So I'm not showing the things for the column. Similar things will be done for the column as well. When you reach a cell, you need to delete for that particular cell from the column ranges as well. So you had n comma m, right? So for each of the row, you are maintaining a multiset. Each of the row you are maintaining a multiset. For each of the columns as well, you are maintaining a multiset for those columns, like what is the non-frozen range. But note that initially everything is 1 to n, like this will be, all elements will be 1 to m, 1 to m. So there are only like r number of elements over here, and these are all 1 to n, 1 to n, right? Everything is unfrozen in initial state. Okay, right? So there are like in total m elements, right? So in total there are there are c elements. R and c are the rows and columns. Okay, so yeah, so I just, so this is n and m. So n is equal to r, and m is equal to c. Like they are both the same. They are like the number of rows and columns that I'm talking about. N is the number of rows, m is the number of columns, r is number of rows, and c is number of columns. So they are like interchangeable, right? Okay. So this is what we are maintaining, and in total the number of variable is just r plus c or n plus m log. Like this is what we are maintaining. So initially this much time takes to insert all of them, right? Something like this. Okay. Now each moves delete exactly. So each of the moves that you make where you reach a particular x comma y, we change the segments in only two multisets, one for the row and one for the column, right? So it's like 2 into log of r plus c that is going to change, right? This much changes that you need to do in the multiset, because you will have to from this particular rows elements, you will have to delete that element and insert two elements. From the columns one as well, you'll have to do the same thing. And when these two things are done, you will have to change, you will have to just start with the next move. So each of the moves is taking 2 into log of r plus c, or whatever the number of elements are there, okay, currently. So this will be q times all the number of operations. So your final complexity would be something like r plus m multiplied by log of n, log of r plus c, in fact, plus q times log of r plus c. Okay. Is it making sense? Is the idea clear to all? Like what are we trying to do over here? So if like, I think it's unclear for a lot of you, so just quickly ask me if what is unclear in this particular part, because I think I will. Can you, like, I think some of you might have doubts in some of the parts. So we are like handling each of the row and each of the column separately. Note that, like, we are not like keeping like them coupled. So for each of the row you have a multiset, for each of the column you have a multiset. So there are a lot of maintenance going on in this part, and but you need to understand that, okay, you can do this because the number of elements will be finite only, like there are only r plus m number of elements being maintained, and every query will like split only 1 into 2. So there are only q number of splits that will happen in total. So in this way, the total number of moves remains like bounded. Make sense? Yeah, exactly. We will do it with vector multiset in STL. Yep. So let me talk about a bit of implementation. I will not going to code the entire thing because it will take some time and I think we will go overboard. But let's say we want to keep something like vector of multiset of pairs. Okay, so this is what we will be maintaining. Since this question is a bit big, I will not refer to multiset because we know the size can be up to 10 to the power 5. So let's define quickly this. And then we have to take, let's say, rows, and similarly we have another multiset of columns, right? So initially you will have to, like, for integer I, let's say int n comma m is the number of rows and columns for c n and m, right? So for integer I equal to 1 to less than equal to n, so for each of the rows you insert, like, for the rows that for that ith row you insert the pair 1 to m. Okay, make sense? Yeah, true. That's okay. You can use sets as well. Like there is not much of a performance difference in it. Like, since we are not inserting distinct elements, there's not a much of performance difference. But yeah, you can use sets. Right. So this is what we will maintain first, and then, like, you will have to implement how you can, like, check a particular point. Like when you get to a particular point, how do you will have to break that particular point in that particular multiset. So whichever column, like, let's suppose you reach at x comma y, so like freeze, let's call a function called freeze int x comma int y. So this will, like, basically freeze that particular cell. And then let's try to implement another function, something like move, which gives int x, int y, and character ch, which side to move. It will move in that direction from that particular cell. Okay. So for freeze, we will, like, from the row, from the xth row, erase, like, we will have to erase. So I'm just commenting this. erase the point y from row x, right? This is a multi-set, and you have to remove this particular point from that multi-set. Okay. Similarly, when you're freezing it, you will have to do one more thing. Erase the point x from the column y. Okay. This is one more thing that you will have to do. And then while moving, you will have to find the next range after this. So that for that you can use lower bound. Okay. And then after using the lower bound, you can find that range first element or last element based on like whether you're moving forward or backward. So there is a lot of implementation in this, but like it's a doable operation with like sets or multisets, right? So we discussed this very similar thing in the previous problem, that how do you find the next element, how we find the previous element, how do we find the next range for a particular point, how do we find the previous range for a particular point. So those all things you will have to do in the move. So is it making sense, or like just like talking random things? Is it making sense? Can I have a +1 on like if the logic is clear? I'm not talking about the code part yet, but let's talk about just the logic, that what we are trying to do and how are we optimizing on the let's say the complexity of this. Okay. So I think so I will yep. Okay. So now can like so we discussed the final complexity as well, right? Just wait a minute, just quickly. So this problem I will like leave for you to implement. So there were two problems similar to this that has appeared prior to this. So I will give for this problem I will give an external link. So this is a previous year problem for Kickstart. Okay. Let me just give me one moment. I'll just quickly give you the link for this particular problem. And okay, maybe I will add this to the STL section with an external problem link, and I will add this particular code, like this particular logic of maintaining segments has appeared in CodeJam once, has appeared on Kickstart once. Okay, so I will add the particular problems relevant to this on the external one. So you can just code this one, try this one on your own. So since we have implemented the previous one, like the code for the previous one where the range, this will going to be very similar, but just you have to implement a lot more. But implementing this is a very good practice because you will get a very good idea of using lower bounds and upper bounds in sets. So after this, I think you will never face a problem in using lower bound and upper bound, right? And this is the time you should not be hesitant with implementing things, because once you pass through this phase, this first 1 month phase is like difficult to, because you struggle with implementing a bit. But once you get past this phase of 1 or 1.5 months, then like you will be able to completely focus on like just logic part, and the implementation will happen automatically. But the initial part, when anyone like starts with the initial part, there is a like a 1.5 to 3 months of latency period where like it is difficult to implement things. So you don't just focus on thinking about the logic, right? So make sure that at least you get your implementation and debugging skills improved at a very good level after this particular course, right? Because that's a very important goal. So as you can see that like these are very like, as I'm able to quickly use lower bounds and upper bounds very easily to find any particular thing. So this is what you should be able to do after this. Okay. So you will have to implement questions on your own. Like this is something I would not be able to transfer directly. You'll have to implement problems, but after this it will certainly be at a good level. Okay. So okay, yep. So let's suppose you want to find, so let's suppose there is a multiset which has like 10 comma minus 10. Okay, and you want to find this pair is present in a multiset. Okay, so in that particular problem anything works, but in general if you had to find so find me the first pair which starts with 10. So the first pair which has the first element as 10, this is what you need to find. So there can be multiple elements like this 10 comma 10 in the same multiset and so on. So you need to find, and there can be elements like 3 comma 2 comma 3 and so on in the multiset. Like, so the second value might not be like greater than the first value. This is a general scenario, not the previous question scenario. But let's say you have to like find a particular element which is greater than or equal to 10 in its first value. Just that's the condition. And if there are multiple, find the smallest one. So in that case, if you search with 10 comma 0 or something like that, you will get this element, right? But the smallest one is this one. The smallest one is this one. So that's why we are using minus mod into mod, because then you will get this one. Make sense? In that particular problem, I understand, like, since it's like L and R will always be greater than or equal to L, it's okay. So that's all for today's session.